So you saved $1,000. Congratulations, because most Americans, in fact 69% of them, do not even have this. So you're better than 70% of Americans, and probably in the top 1% of the world, at least 90% of the world, that don't have $1,000, because a lot of other countries are not as fortunate as us. But you don't want to stop there. You want to figure out how to turn it into $1 million plus, and I'm someone who is going to show you, because at one point I was here at this point, $1,000, and I've turned this into a more than $3 million real estate portfolio. Now I have business partners, so it's not 100% mine, but I did that in 6 years while also starting multiple businesses. And my rental properties bring in about $20,000 a month. I'm a real estate investor, and so I want to show you how to go from here to here with actual steps, and break down some concepts that I think were going to be super valuable for you to go from here to here that I wish I knew when I started. And if you like videos like this where I'm basically just running off the cuff, I got some notes here on my phone, give it a like, because I'm trying this new format where I'm actually trying to just talk to you guys in the camera instead of always having a script, because I don't think I sound that good with the script. So the first part is where we are at. That's part one of where we're talking about here. And I like to use this spray because it makes a nice and clean whiteboard. It bothers me when I got a little bit of stuff on the screen here. Okay, so you're at, draw a quick graph for you. Most people are somewhere between here and here. Okay, this is 70% of Americans. We're just going to focus on America. Okay. Now to go from here to here, $1 million, I would say is pretty exponential, and this is probably about the next 25%. And then you have the next 5% of people which go to 1 billion plus, because about 6% of the US are millionaires. Okay, so this is where you're at. You're currently right here. But I want to tell you that this part right here is the hardest part, okay? Getting started is the hardest part. You've done the hardest part. The next part is about continuing what you're doing and finding ways to get more and more from that money that you've saved up. Okay, so congratulations, because it takes effort and work to get to that first 1,000. It takes skills that you're going to now repeat and reuse. Okay, so now that we've got that, you need to figure out, your first step is figure out what your vehicle is of investing. Okay, because your vehicle for investing will affect how quickly, how far you go, how stable you get there, how much time you spend. There's a lot involved in that. So there's a scale I like to use, okay? It's like this. I like drawing graphs and stuff, all right? You have, on one side, you have passiveness, okay? How passive the investment is. Sorry, if I wasn't clear about that, you're gonna take your money and you're now going to start investing it in different ways. Okay. So the two sides of the spectrum has different types of investments along this spectrum. Okay? And typically the way it works is the more passive something is, the less profits you make. Okay? This is typically how it works. And the more active something is, the more profit you can make. Okay, because usually you're trading your passiveness, meaning lack of time, for someone else to do the work to get money, and to be able to still make profits with less time. But it's all about leveraging your time properly. When you're starting out, you might want to focus more on active forms, because active forms can get you more profit, which could then help you scale up from 1,000 to 100,000, or to 500, or to $1 million. And over time, as you see what rich people do, and this is what I've noticed, they all talk about diversifying, but what they're actually doing, when they're starting out is not diversifying. They're starting off going all in on one form of investment, one form of business, and then they're building that up. And then once they have a lot of money coming in, they use diversification to protect their wealth, okay? So let's go on complete end of the passiveness scale, all right? This is do nothing. You have your money. Maybe you're like some old school Italian parents who store their money in cash underneath their bed, right? This is terrible. Don't do this. Why? Because there's something known as inflation, okay? Inflation is when the dollar goes down over time, okay? So and it's usually about 3%. In between 2022 and 2025, it has been really bad, okay? Somewhere as high as the CPI index is what they use to measure this, was around 9%. So in that situation, if you had $100 next year, or let's take your $1,000 for example, if it was worth 9% less, then that means you have only really what is $910 the next year by holding on to the money. You lost money over time. Now, because those dollars, the inflation causes the price of things to go up, which means the dollars are worth less, which is why you've seen home prices go up, why you've seen stock prices and groceries and stuff like that go up, okay? So if you do nothing with your money, it's very passive, but you make nothing off of it, quite literally nothing. And in fact, you lose money. The next thing you could do is a high yield, I don't know how to spell yield, savings account. Now, if you want a link to a bunch of high yield savings accounts, I can give you those, but basically a high yield savings account is a bank account that grows at a faster rate than most bank accounts. Like when you have certain banks, I'm not gonna list them all because I don't want to hurt my chance of getting a sponsor, because that's how I make my money on this channel. But certain banks give you very low interest, like 0.01% interest on your bank account, whereas certain other ones will give you things like 3%. Now that changes with how the Fed changes their funds rate, but for all you need to know right now is you want to pick a bank account that has higher rates, and I can give you access to some that have that. And so if you did that, and let's say you got 3% on your bank account and you had $1,000, next year that turns into $1,003. Did I do that right? No, 3% is $30. That's what happens when I don't script anything. So you made $30 on your money just by holding it in a bank account. Now this is extremely passive. You do absolutely nothing for this except the upfront work to put the money in the bank account, and it's mostly safe unless the bank fails, but even then there's something called FDIC insurance that will protect you, okay? But that is a way to make a little bit of money. Now with inflation, you tend to break even or maybe lose a little bit of money while it's sitting in your bank account. So it's still not the best, all right? We still want to get to a higher point where we're making more money. Okay, this is basically gonna be like a master class for beginners. So then the next thing above that would be something like bonds, okay? Now, I don't have much experience investing into bonds. I did a little bit back like 10 years ago when I had a little bit of money to play with when I was starting around this $1,000 range, but these are usually stable because a lot of them are backed by the US government, and you might get a little bit more than what your high yield savings account is. So you make a little bit more, it's a little bit more active because you have to find the bonds and invest in them, and you usually have to hold on the bonds for a little while. To make a little money. Then on top of that, you have index funds. Okay, index funds are usually a group of companies, and a huge popular example of this is the S&P 500. It takes the top 500 companies in the stock market, and basically you invest in all of them, a little bit of all of them, and these usually return somewhere around 7 and 10% a year. historically. Some people have said 7, some people say 10. I think it's more like 8. But you have to do a little bit of work. You have to create an account on one of these websites like Robinhood or something like that. Robinhood is what I used 10 years ago. I know a lot of people don't use that right now, but I don't invest in index funds anymore because to me it's a waste of time. But you start investing your money in this, and so you can grow it at a faster rate. So in this case, if you had $1,000 and it got 10%, you now have $1,100 next year. And you're like, whip-diddy-do, I made $100. But this is how the snowball effect works, okay? So then next year, if you did another 10%, that's $110, I believe. So now you have $1,210. And that keeps snowballing. The money that you earned makes you a little bit of more money every single time. Something like that. I'm not using a calculator for these examples, so please don't beat up on me if I'm not doing the math properly right off the bat. It's part of doing this. Then you can probably invest in crypto. Now, I have a little bit of money in crypto only because of everyone telling me that I should have a little bit of money in crypto, but this is something that you should research more, which makes it more active than any of these other things because these things are more well documented, we can say. Crypto is a newer space. It's been around since Satoshi, that Satoshi guy who made Bitcoin, who no one actually knows who he is, created it. And Bitcoin, there's no like set returns because again, we don't have a lot of historical data on it. It tends to go up and down, but you need to understand more about how crypto works in order to invest in it, okay? But let's say for the sake of example that crypto gives you 10%. I can't really guarantee that. None of these things are guaranteed, by the way. It might not be worth it over index funds because index funds are more guaranteed, I would say. You have more historical data on crypto than this. So as you keep going on this scale, some things are going to have more risk than others, and some things are going to be more active than passive, and some things are going to make more money than that. So what you need to do at the end of this, and I'll explain, is you need to choose one based off of your personality and goals. Now, the next thing, which is what I focus in on, is real estate investing. Now, if you do real estate investing right by buying cash flowing rental properties, I think you can make a 15 to 20% total return from real estate, which means if you had invested $1,000, which it's hard to invest $1,000 in real estate, you can make $150 to $200 per year, which is faster than these. And I would consider real estate very risk averse given the fact that you have a lot of historical data that real estate goes up over time, that people will always need a place to live, even during AI, and it's a very stable asset. It doesn't crash hard. It doesn't grow very quickly usually. But the last 10 years, last 15 years, we did see a crash and we did see a quick growth spurt. But I could talk more about real estate in a second here. And then the last thing that I would put on this list is business. All right. So business, I started a content creation business, right? I spend money to get an editor. You have costs and you have income every single year. But usually when you start a business, you can make more profit, but the problem is it takes you a lot more work. Real estate is kind of a combination between investing in some of these things and business. It has, to me, the pros of both. It is more passive than a regular business, but it is more active than investing in these places because you have more control. But some businesses you can literally start this year, and if you're good at it, I wouldn't expect to do this, but you can literally make 100%, 200%, 300%. There's no cap to what you can make in business. So if you were to invest $1,000 in your business, you could turn that into $10,000 the next year. Let's say you bought $1,000 of a product and you sold it all, and that made you $10,000. You made a 10x return, which you cannot do with other types of investing. So business has the highest return, but it's also the most active and the most risky. 95% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. So you only have a 5% success rate. Okay, so now that you see this entire scale and you have that first $1,000, you need to ask yourself, okay, which one are you gonna do? And maybe you start with one and then you expand into others. But most rich people pick one, double down on one, learn it all, and then they expand, okay? And so you wanna deal with your personality, okay? That's first. Are you someone that doesn't want to really work at all? If you're lazy, you're definitely not going to want to start a business unless if you have a bunch of funds to hire a bunch of people out. If you're lazy, you're probably not going to want to actively own real estate, okay? If you don't really want to do anything. Real estate's pitched a lot as passive income, but it does take some work. Once you do a lot of work up front, but it does take some work, which is why it's more on the active side. So the question that I would write here is, how much work are you willing to do? Second thing is your risk tolerance. Okay, that's a fancy way of saying, are you the type of person that likes to jump out of planes? That's not me, okay? I like being safe and on the ground. Now my apartment's 31 floors up, but I feel like I'm on the ground over here. You don't want to take a lot of risk. So if you're someone that doesn't want to take a lot of risk, you're going to want to be on this side of the spectrum more. I would definitely avoid crypto. I would definitely avoid business. I would definitely avoid doing nothing because that definitely has risk. So I would stick between high yields, bonds, index funds, and real estate if you're someone that has a low risk tolerance. Let's see, do I have any other notes here on the personality aspect? These are, I would say, the most important thing. We're talking about people who have $1,000. If you happen to be watching this video and you have more money, it's easier to get started in real estate if you have more than $1,000. And so what a lot of people do, if they know they want to do real estate or business, they typically start with $1,000 in stocks or high yield savings, and then they build that up by continuing to save with the skills that they built, and then they move those funds into real estate and business, which can help you have higher returns. And then the second thing would be your goals, okay? So if you're someone that you enjoy your job, maybe you're a software engineer, you enjoy working the 8 hours, you enjoy coding. Unfortunately, this is not most people. 70% of people don't like their jobs, just like 70% of people don't have $1,000 saved. It's probably because they don't like their jobs. They're spending all their money outside of work to make themselves happy, but it's really not buying them happiness. Anyway, maybe I just came up with an insight there. Your goals are super important because if you need to retire in 10 years, it's going to be really hard to do that with index funds. It's going to be really hard to do that with the high yield savings account. It's going to be really hard to do that with crypto, unless if you have a lot of money. If you have $10 million to start and you invest that into an index fund, you get 7% on $10 million. What is that? $700,000 a year? That's pretty good for you to live off of, right? Once you get to that $10 million mark. How quickly do you need the money? If you need the money quickly, you're going to want to do business, okay? Or fix and flip real estate or some form of wholesaling real estate, but those aren't like long-term investing opportunities. So it's how quickly you need the money. The more quick you need the money, you're probably going to want to stick to this end of the spectrum. If you need money over a longer period of time, you're going to want to stick to this end of the spectrum. Are you trying to quit your job? So if you're trying to quit your job, obviously you need to replace your income. So again, you're going to want to stick to this side of the spectrum, not this side of the spectrum. If you're happy with your job and you just want to keep it here, if you're investing for your kids, then you might want to do something more passive. I would stick to this side and over. I wouldn't start a whole business just for your kids, because you can take the money that you're making from your job, invest that, and that will grow over time. And the good thing with kids is that typically they won't touch the money for 20 years as long as you're not giving them access to the money. And then you can use that to grow. So I'm investing in real estate to retire my parents. So I have somewhat of a pressed timeline because my parents are in their, about to both be in their 60s. And so I want them to enjoy their life. So real estate is a really good way to, over a 15 year period, to get there. So that's why I picked real estate. And I also like the passiveness of real estate. I like the fact that it's a tangible aspect, it's less risky. So that's why I ended up picking real estate. But for you, you might end up picking bonds because you're super risk averse and you don't need the money right away. You just need it to grow without you doing anything. Now, if you like real estate, I'm gonna give you my process here on how I would go about getting started based off of where you are at, okay? Because that is my field of expertise. It's not in general investing, although I have generally invested in all of those things that were on the board, including doing nothing with my cash. I have $200 sitting in the car. No one robbed my car, okay? All right, so how to do this with real estate. Okay, so step one is to put your money in high yield savings account. Okay, so you take the money that you currently have and make it stop losing as much as it will and put it in a high yield savings account. If you are a little bit more risky, you can put this in an index fund. Okay, so index fund, it'll grow more typically in an index fund, but if you catch it in an off year and you lose a bunch of money, don't at me. That is the risk of putting an index fund. So here you might gain 3, here you might gain 7 to 10. So it might be better to put an index fund, but if you lose your money when it's time to invest in real estate, like if you tried to invest in real estate in February 2020 when stock prices dropped 40%, don't be mad at me. The second step is to start saving more. You have the skills now. You did the hard work, is saving that first $1,000. Now you take those skills and you keep, and you keep using it to save more money. Because the money that you started saving is going to help you now save more. Once you figure this out, that it's all within your control, and I know groceries are hard, and I'm having trouble saving sometimes months too, because transparently, my social media business doesn't make me a boatload of money, and that's kind of what I've been living off of to try to grow my real estate business. I should have kept my job as a software engineer, transparently, but hopefully you guys watch this video and I make $20 off of a YouTube video. That'd be nice. So you start saving more money, okay? This will help you then put that back into these accounts. All right? While you are doing that, you're going to keep learning, okay? Now, when I started out, I didn't have anyone that could help me. I read almost every single real estate book, but I was stuck for 4 years. I had access to the money, really, like I was making $100 and something thousand a year at 24, like that's way too much money for me to make at 24. I was saving a boatload of money. And I didn't need to keep learning, but I was scared. So a lot of you are gonna be scared and you're gonna wanna keep learning. You keep doing that now. If you wanna accelerate that and get started sooner, I have mentoring. You can go to my school link, and right now, it's in my profile, so it's down low in the description as well. It's probably in the pinned comment. It's $50 a month. We have I give you a 90-day money-back guarantee if you don't buy your first rental property in the first 90 days, as long as you do the actions that I require you to do. It's literally the cheapest, the most affordable way to get my help, and the fastest way to buy a property, because I just cut through the noise and I give you specific action steps like I'm doing here, but more tailored. I take you on websites. I show you exactly what to do. So if you're someone that's like that and you want that help, you can go there. And then once you're ready, you buy your first property, okay? I did this in 2019, and it's now 2026, so I'm a little over 6 years having been invested, and so that's how I was able to scale my portfolio, and honestly, I didn't go that hard. And so you can do this in a few different ways. You can live in the property first, then turn it into a rental, or you could buy a rental property first because you saved up the money and you learned the skills in this time frame. And And then the last step would be to scale up. There's a lot of things that we could talk about here about how to scale. I have multiple videos on how to do that. You can check my video on how I went from $0 to $10,000 a month. I'll leave that on screen. And if you want my help to start investing in real estate, please share this with someone. I've given you 100 CTAs. This is what happens when I don't have a script. Goodbye, everyone.